Hello, Georgette Gancars here, and today we're going to talk about abstracts, landscapes, and how to compose them. So not only on the canvas, but how to get to that point of composing them, and something that you might want to paint from, like a picture or a photograph. And what I do is, if you are in a car when it's raining, if you're the passenger, obviously, not the driver, you'd sit in the back seat of the car, and you can take your cell phone camera, put your cell phone on, put the camera, and face it toward the outside. And when it's raining, the water will be coming down the car windows. And if you put your cell phone up close to, against the car window, you'll get beautiful reflections outside because it will make everything appear very blurry. And it's really good. You can do it in the day, or you can do it, like I said, when it's raining in the evening. That's even better because you get lots of reflections and shadows and beautiful colors from the street lights. If you live in a city and you pass by in the car and you have the cell phone up against the car window, you can capture beautiful, like, sky risers, and they usually have the lights on, street lamps, and you notice at night when it rains, everything is more brighter and vibrant. So that's something that you might explore because it will be very blurry, obviously, with the water. The other thing that you can do is you can put water on the back of your lens of your camera. Just don't put a lot, right? Or you can put Vaseline. So a little water drop, not a lot of water, a tiny water drop, but preferably like Vaseline, because you can wipe it off. It won't destroy the lens, and you'll get this kind of blurry look. And then you can take pictures of what you want to take pictures of, print them out, or just paint from that. So that's what I'm going to start from. And this is going to be much of an abstraction. I'm deciding how I want to do the cityscape. You'd have to decide, do you want the canvas, going across or along? And I decided I think I'm going to do it for the camera wise. We might have it like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, and I'm just going to start with the sky. And I'm using a half blade, and I'm using the back side and the front side, and I'm just using my T-White. You can paint with gesso. This happens to be an acrylic canvas, but you can use the white as a primer and make the texture first and let it dry, and then put oils on top, or acrylics. You can never mix this with oils, obviously, But the gesso, you can just put on top, and sometimes I paint with the gesso because it's so thick, but you have to get a really good brand of gesso. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a tiny bit of black on the tip of my knife, and now I'm going to kind of mix that in here, and I get this little bit of a gray sky. I'm going to saturate it all over the canvas, and I might make it darker here. And again, a little bit of black goes a long way, especially with this white underpainting here, this white coat. And I'm going to build up the sky a little bit more. And the thing is, when you're painting, the good part is it's your canvas, so you can change it whenever you want. You don't have to make it look. If you don't like it, just cover it up and start over. And sometimes, when you're painting with the palette knife, that texture works for you because you can always build it up and use it for something later. So that's kind of like my sky area here. And you can see I'm using the back and the front of the knife. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rest of this white gesso, and I'm just going to pull it down. And I'm pulling it, you can see some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. And I'm just making the shapes of these buildings, or the edges of the buildings. Okay, then now I'm going to go, I still have white on my knife, I'm going to clean it off a little. Okay, and I'm going to start picking up colors. So the first color I'm going to pick up here is going to be my yellow ochre. And again, you can make these colors. You can make this color by mixing, you know, a little bit of your cad yellow and some brown, or you can make a brown by mixing blue and orange and adding yellow into it and then adding white. So I'm just going to add these shadows, and what happens is when I add them into the white, I'll show you the effect. They don't take some of the white is left, and I kind of want to see that. I don't want to see all of this brown. I want to see some of that nice white come through. And I can just layer it on top. It just gives a little bit more texture, and it makes it interesting. And again, this is going to be the bottom part, maybe the reflection. So I'm going to bring some of that color down to the bottom here in the canvas where that color is. Okay? The next color I decided to do probably be a turquoise blue. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of my turquoise blue. And when I'm painting, sometimes I just go with my feeling and where I just want to put the colors. And you see how I'm dragging the knife. I'm not really pressing hard because I'm letting that turquoise come through. So I left these spaces in between. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here and I'm going to take a little bit of white because this is going a different way. This is my reflection down here. I'm going to drag that across. I'm just taking those colors and dragging them across. Okay? Maybe that's where the skyline ends. We can make believe. I'm going to add a little bit of gray to this, just so you can see that this is the reflection. It's a little bit darker. Just going to add a tiny bit. Paint. We had the gray and the blue. Let me get this. Okay, and it's that kind of soft kind of area of that reflection. And then when it dries, I'm going to pull down the buildings into this area, which I'm going to make water. A little bit more. Get a little bit more of a reflection here. Just taking on the end of my knife, dragging it through. Okay, I have this reflection, and I can do the same with the blue if I think it's too strong. I'm just picking up a little bit of white, dragging it on top. I get a nice reflection. Now the next area I'm going to come in with this is another color blue. I think I'm going to mix some blue and some black. This is going to be the color I want to use next. And I am going to just put these buildings here. And like I said, you can use your own color. You can make it monochromatic. You don't have to use these colors, obviously. I want to make sure that these buildings appear that they're kind of in the distance. So they're fading. So you can see what I did to the blue. You can still see them, but they're kind of fading away in the distance. And if you want to pop it in, then you just add a little bit more. If you want to fade it away, you just do a light layer of your white on top and press a little bit with the knife, making sure you keep it the shape of the building. And the next thing I want to do is I want to do some grays. And I want to do darker grays because I want to see them in the front. And I think I'm going to have one here. And again, this is a building that you might see, when you're driving by in a car, right? Because it's very kind of blurry. It's not really that detailed, is it? Okay, and you're kind of just building up the buildings in the city. Now the next thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take your knife and you're going to have to start dragging those shadows down. So we had, and this is just the reflection in this area. Remember we had the reflections of the buildings. So I'm just kind of dragging those colors down where I see them. Remember we dragged it across. Now we're just dragging it down. Okay, and we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep building up those reflections. And what I do is I'm going to change the size of my knife now so I get a little bit of variation. And I'm going to go for a smaller palette knife. Here we go. So I can kind of get, you really want to, when you're painting, you really want to get in those edges, okay? So you want to have some detail, but not too much, right? So I can do that. I can put other buildings here, or I can put a line here. And maybe I'm going to have some more buildings up here. And again, I'm scraping them off because remember, they're in the distance, so they would really be like very light, right? You might not be, on a gray day, when you walk down the city and it's kind of raining, you might see some of these buildings, right? But you're not going to see like all of them. There might be different shapes. Some of them might disappear into the sky. Okay, so we're going to keep building this up. And then you might put like a little bit of highlights on top. That's the cool thing about the brush. You see how we can put a white on top with barely touching it? We can get a lot of abstraction with the white and the light. You really want to play with the light. But you want to blend it too. You want to scrape it out, right? Because it's in the background. So you're just building this up. So we'll come back. I'll come back. And again, I've only been working on this less than, looking at the time, about 5 minutes or 6 minutes when I started, besides the area of the gesso. And we're getting to this. Okay? And now I think I'm going to have a little bit of a horizon line here. You want to blend that horizon line. Okay, so this is kind of stage one. We'll come back and I'll show you what it's going to look like in the beginning. And this is just kind of just making the shapes. Okay, so I'll see you and I'll show you the next step. Ciao.